Tyrian is a game from 1995 by Eclipse Software, published by Epic Mega Games. As a point of sheer historical trivia, almost everyone involved in this game went on to do something incredible. This game is a little overlapping point in the histories of everything from Tripletown, Deus Ex, and The Mandalorian. Tyrian is where many of those legacies started. What is Tyrian, aside from what you can obviously see over my shoulder here? It's a shmup, a term that still annoys some people, but I'm very fond of. It's a term for shoot 'em up, vertically scrolling, where you have a little ship at the bottom of the screen, pew-pew-pewing up at the enemies that come down at you. You can move around pretty freely, your guns are immediate and obvious in what they do, and you can upgrade them and pick up coins and get fruit and whatnot, all in the name of surviving to the end of the level and getting better at doing all of those things. Very few games of this type actually gate the end of the level around what you do to get there. It's usually just that destroying enemies stops them from attacking you, and that can make the route to the end more survivable. Shmups as a genre are incredibly dense, with three basic forms I know. There are a bunch of arcade-based skill shooters, which started out on cabinets and moved on to the consoles that were able to push the form to its limits, and now probably exist as quite sad phone games. There are the upgrade path, shops and stats versions of the games, which I saw from the PC, with a lot more exploration of niche weirdness. I want to say Vampire Survivors is kind of an inheritor of this form, and it too is also available on consoles because there are no borders or boundaries anymore. Then there's Toho games, about which I do not want to talk, but which I can understand are a vast and bountiful field that is politely marked over there, so I can avoid it entirely. I have this banner graphic. I think most people are talking about games in a way that is boring and dumb. I stand by this. I think that when you talk about them wholly in terms of being products with a price, you've taken a human experience machine and made it into a lawnmower. I think the consideration of playful experiences shaped by a designer with a deliberate intention should recognize the way they are interesting to the experience of the commenter and what about them makes them interesting. To that end, I want to talk about three feelings Tyrian gives me that I can share with you, with a bonus fourth one at the end. First of all, Tyrian is exciting. This kind of fast action game on the PC wasn't common when it was new. There were games that wanted to do it, but they rarely could move as fast or sound as explosive while doing it. Smooth scrolling on the PC had been accomplished, but then there was a challenge in doing it well. Tyrian's pixel art looks incredible even now. Playing Tyrian and even watching Tyrian feels good to me. This is, I think, the most painfully subjective part of it too. You've probably seen a lot of games that look just as good and play just as fluidly. When you go back to play old video games, one of the things that can come up is how often the interface for playing with them is just a bit bad. And it's not just a matter of learning how to win the game, but also learning how the games are meant to be communicated with in ways that sometimes are just deeply confusing. We've settled on a lot of standardized forms for the way video games work these days, and that means that older forms, where things were weird and experimental, sometimes just feel wrong, and in many cases use ideas that we very early on worked out were bad, and we shouldn't do things that way. Tyrian has a gameplay mode for 2 players that was at the time totally unique to my experience. One player played the small, fast-moving, forward-shooting dragon head vessel, and one player played the cool, broad, heavy, and angular-firing dragon wing vessel. This was cool enough, but then when the two ships got close enough to one another, they connected, they docked, like the coolest toy you never got, and suddenly the dragon head player was steering the two vessels as one big ship, and the dragon wing player controlled the turret and the side guns. The game was simple enough that one player could control the game with the mouse, and the other could control it with only the movement keys and 2 buttons, and everything else was context-driven. It's been a long time since I played Tyrian with a friend, but everyone I've played it with has been a delight, and the game is just difficult enough that when we coordinated together it felt like an actual achievement, even with my experience. Second, Tyrian is vast. This is a top-down shmup of a style you've almost certainly seen so many times before. What you've probably never experienced before is a game like this with such a huge and expansive lore. And yes, I see you Toho fans, but this is all just in this game and doesn't require you reading several hundred doujinshi. Tyrian is a game with a plot where every level has an explanation and the sequence of the story is connected by people sending you messages and you collecting those messages in transition. Tyrian has multiple secret modes in layers of one another, and even a whole extra minigame that's about playing tanks shooting at each other. Every unlock brings new unlocks. There's secret buttons to change game modes. There are numerous upgrades the game doesn't document anywhere, and your only option for understanding them, or how they work at all, is to just experiment with button presses in a game where you get, at most, 4 buttons. It's like finding that the game secretly had Street Fighter style special abilities in it or something, and not in a way that sucks like Biomenace does. Third, Tyrian is engaging. Kind of incredibly so. For a game form that doesn't require any real plot, indeed, you can play the game without plot at all. The story actually outlines an arc with forks and choices in it where the amount of information you get about the story is a byproduct of how well you play, and the game mode you play. In the story campaign, you're flying between stores, upgrading your equipment with money collected along the way. You start out trying to escape from a super corporation chasing you down after they murder your friend, and along the way you get involved in a conflict with another super corporation, you fly into refugees escaping a war zone, and can even optionally shoot them down without even knowing that's what you were doing. You can fight a duel with a mercenary across multiple zones, and then find you are being exploited, flee the star system, and come back to fight an evil cult trying to corner all food production in the galaxy. There is a lot. That's kind of unnecessary. It's from a time when text in a game was a feature, not an impediment. You didn't have to pay voice actors, you didn't have to make an animated cutscene for anything. You could just present text on its own as the material that communicated its ideas to the player. It's funny too, because sending text messages is still one of the most efficient forms of communication we have, information dense in ways that audio recordings aren't. And yes, I appreciate the irony. Tyrian is interesting. I wrote about it a long time ago, talking about it as a product, because it was free, and I wanted to recommend a free game for people. It is, by the way, linked in the description. I wrote about it back then because I wanted to revisit it. I wanted to think about it. I wanted to tell people about this game that honestly is still impressive in just how much game you could put in a game from the 1990s. Most of the Tyrian I played by volume, even across decades of its existence, has been the first episode's shareware mode. I played that shareware version into the ground across numerous Christmas holidays, looping through its small number of levels to find all the secrets, then to find all of those secrets, then to find the ways that those secrets were better than the other secrets, then doing it all again. It was a game experience of trying to understand something very deeply, just by dint of using it. No hacking tools, no FAQs, no expository hints in the game, just trying things over and over again until I was confident in what I had found. This game invited me to build my mastery of it, and then I found out there were 4 more episodes of it that I'd forgotten about, and in there was even more room to learn and grow and create. The final feeling is that Tyrian makes me feel old. Tyrian came out in 1995. I remember my dad getting the shareware CD that had Tyrian on it. I remember it being on the cover of the PC format magazine. It was either the February or the January edition. Man, I remember magazines. I remember shareware as a primary way of accessing new software. I remember the world before the internet. I remember thinking about games in terms of all the things they could do and stories they could tell, and not in terms of what they couldn't do, because nobody would care. I remember a world where a bunch of people's first game could lead to a career in games, as opposed to now, where so many studios are being crushed in a vice, and I don't pretend to be the economics major who can explain why. I would just start firing billionaires into the sun and see how quickly things changed. That's how old Tyrian made me feel when I first wrote about it on my new blog, 11 years ago. Tyrian is such a good game, and it's worth looking at, and it's worth playing if this is the kind of thing that interests you, which is such a generic and empty phrase. What I'd like to say is that Tyrian is fast and loud, and I love playing it, and that's all I need. The fact that it also has this interesting story of a guy in a video game plot working out how to contend with being a video game protagonist as people try to exploit what he can do is shockingly interesting for a period of history where you didn't have to do anything for a game's story at all.